And still working our way through the first chapter of The Whispering Mountain by Joan Aiken. Owen and Erebus are riding together in the doctor's wagon with all of his playwriting, or with all of his poem writing materials in there. We've just had a description of what Erebus looks like, and we'll pick up from where the video cut off. Owen and she were not unlike, both being thin and dark, but his eyes, behind the glasses, were brown, not grey. On the journey from Southampton to Gloucester, people had sometimes taken them for brother and sister. Owen knew that Erebus had once had a younger brother, but he and her mother had both died of an inflammation in the hard winter 10 years before. "So you go to school now," Erebus said. "Lucky boy! You can learn history and astronomy and all the languages that they speak in foreign lands. It makes me sad to think that if I met my mother now, she might be speaking, and maybe I'd not understand her." "You'd pick it up fast enough," Owen said, remembering Erebus had told him her mother came from the island of Melita. "You are such a clever girl, Erebus. I believe you know all there is to know about herbs and wild creatures, and younger than me, too." There's wonderful," she laughed at him. "How would I help it? But to learn in school, I'd go if it didn't mean leaving Tom. Don't you love learning?" "Yes," Owen said truly. He did not speak again of his difficulties with Mogg and the others, who hated him because he was a stranger. Why whine about his troubles to Erebus? Nothing seemed to perturb her. He had seen her quiet and unafraid before a bullying magistrate accused of witchcraft, and equally calm facing the charge of an angry bull, maddened by the pain of a broken horn. She would probably think he was making a fuss over a trifle, but, he suddenly thought, he could tell her about his other worry. Erebus was the only person he could think of who might have sensible advice to offer. "Erebus," he said on an impulse, "have you ever heard of the harp of Teretu?" "Teretu? Indeed, yes. Tom would be telling us stories about it when we were little. That it was made of gold and had 3 rows of strings, one for men and one for kings, and a row that would burst out playing all on its own if a strange hand tried to steal the harp, and a lot more besides. Yes, that's it. My father told me the story too. Kilwyth, son of Prince Celydon, got his cousin, King Arthur, to help him steal it for a bride gift for the Princess Olwen. It was taken from Castle Teretude to the king's castle at Caerleon, and then to the castle at Ysbladden Penquar. But then it was lost. Some say St. Dunstan had it and gave it to St. Enadog. Some that it found its own way home to Castle Teretrude. There was a prophecy about it made by one of the old bards, Erebus said. When the whispering mountain shall scream aloud, and the castle of Malin ride on a cloud, then Malin's lord shall have a hold, and lost that is found the harp of gold. Then Fig Hat Ben shall wear a shroud, then shall the despoiler that was so proud plunge headlong down from the devil's leap, then shall the children from darkness creep, and the men of the glen avoid disaster, and the harp of terror too find her master. But it is very confusing indeed, for how could the castle of Malin ride on a cloud, and who is the despoiler, anyway? What about the harp, boy? Well, that's it, Owen said. My grandfather thinks he has found it. No, said Erebus, and her eyes went wild. Well, there is a piece of news indeed. But you look as glum as if you had lost a guinea and found a groat. Where did he pick up the old harp? He was taking stones from the ruined monastery on the island, in the river Graff, to build another room on the museum. He pulled down a bit of wall and found a little closet hollowed out in it. In the closet was an old chest lined with copper, and in the chest was the harp. No nonsense, said Erebus, much interested. Will it play? She glanced up at the crwth hanging on the wall. Dearly would I like to get my fingers on it. No, it won't play. It is old and black, and all the strings but one have gone. But the frame is made of gold, grandfather thinks, and there is ancient writing on it. Valuable, then, will it be? Yes, Owen said gloomily. And that is one of the reasons why there is trouble in the town. Why, in the name of Fifilorg? Nobody can agree about what should be done with the harp. Some say sell it, and let the money go to build a new school. There's a foreign Ottoman gentleman in the town, and it's believed he wants to buy it. But some say the harp should stay here because it was found on town land and belongs to the people of Pennygaff. And everybody seems to be angry with grandfather. What does your granddad say? Owen looked troubled. He says it isn't clear yet who has a right to the harp. He says the island where it was found isn't town land. Whose is it, then? Grandfather thinks it probably belongs to the Marquis of Malin. He owns most of the land here round. Ah, ye fie, that bad man. Is he so bad? When my man was ill, Erebus said, we halted the wagon in a patch of bushes up by the lodge of Castle Malin. The lodge-keeper's wife, who was a decent sort of woman, but had Mamma in her cottage with my little brother, and was nursing them. His lordship got word of it and said he'd have no gypsies and vagabonds squatting in his cottage or tinker wagons standing by his park gates. My dad asked to see him and told him she was ill, but it was only for a little time, till she took a turn for the better. But the Lord said if she was ill, she had better go to the workhouse rather than infect his people. So he sent 3 of his men to carry her out of the lodge. Out in the snow they carried her and put her in the cart. So we went on over the hills. But that night was the worst storm of the winter. The horse died in the shafts halfway over, and Mamma and my little brother died too. There was silence for a minute. Then Erebus went on. I've heard other tales of him too. They say the rents he charges his tenants are the highest in the country, and they can't pay. Out they go that same, and if they can't pay, out they go that same day. And then he treats his servants like slaves. Hundreds of them are at work, day and night, polishing the hooves of his horses, blowing between the leaves of his books, cleaning his collection of gold things. He keeps a footman who must run before his carriage whenever he drives. Imagine having to run faster than a carriage all day long. With a start, Owen remembered the man who had rushed panting down the hill. So many things had happened since then that until this moment the strange event had vanished from his mind. Erebus went on. If the harp, if Tier 2 really belongs to him, it could hardly have a worse owner. Nobody knows for sure yet, Owen said, but grandfather is determined to act fairly in the matter.